Update. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister walk down the aisle at my wedding? Original post. I, 29 female, am getting married to the love of my life, 30 male, in a few months. We were high school lovers and childhood friends. He's truly my best friend and everything I want in life. However, we both decided to wait until we were well off to be married so we could have our once-in-a-lifetime magical moment. My sister, Stacy, 21 female, got married at 19 to someone who I like but I'm not super close with. They were together for 5 months before he proposed. Their wedding was rushed and half our family couldn't even make it because of how soon it was planned and set up. It was small and just in a courtroom. No dress, party or anything, just a legal wedding. However, my wedding is around $19K and we haven't even finished everything. It took us ages to set everything up and save. Stacy recently came up to me while coming over. We're close and have dinner once a week at my place. And asked if she could walk down my aisle and meet her husband so she could feel like a bride. I laughed and asked if she was serious, and she was. She claims she never got her magic moment and just wants to feel special once. But it's my wedding and my special day. She had hers. Stacy claims it will only be between us and it won't take away from me. But then I asked what she might wear, and she showed me pictures on her phone of wedding dresses. Hard no for me. She then asked again yesterday in front of my fiancé, and I think it was an attempt to pressure me. He laughed and said no, thinking it was a joke, like I did the first time. My mother and Stacy's husband say I'm being an a-hole because Stacy still isn't rich, so she can't afford another wedding even if she wanted one. But neither are me and my future husband. We just planned for years. I just wanted one day for myself. But maybe I'm blowing it up because she never got the bridal experience? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. There is no conceivable universe where her walking down the aisle on your wedding day at a location of your wedding, wearing a wedding dress, will be just between the two of you and not detract from your day. It's rude of her to even ask. If she wants a special moment, she's free to plan her own vow renewal event, where she wears a wedding dress and has all her family, etc. If she was just going to wear a nice dress and walk before me and stand beside me and her husband, I would probably have no problem with it, or at least let her do it. But I feel like she's just trying to use my wedding as a free event for her. That would be nice of you, but given how much work, planning, and orchestrating a wedding is, and how much money spent, it should really be about you. Not a-hole. I see stuff like this on the sub, and I am shocked that people have the audacity to even ask stuff like this. It doesn't matter if she's her sister, and her moment wasn't what she hoped for. If you allow this, then your moment will be different than you imagine it to be too. Your sister and her husband made their choices. They could have waited, but they didn't. I asked her when she accepted his proposal if she was sure it was a good idea, since it seemed really rushed. But her response was that since my boyfriend proposed a few weeks earlier, she wanted to get hers over with and tie the knot, so that I would be able to have my wedding in the fall like I always dreamed, and hers wouldn't overlap. Have a trusted person ready with a glass of red wine to accidentally stumble into the sister if she shows up in a white dress. That would probably cause tons of problems, since the dresses she's been showing off and texting me have been $500 to $2,000, and knowing her, I would be paying if anything happened. Hold up, what? If she can afford a $1,000 wedding dress, then she can afford to do a vow renewal, either in a cheap venue or in a backyard. She is guilt-tripping you massively, and so is your mom. I'm so sorry for you. Having read your post and some of your comments, it sounds like you've been conditioned to feel like you owe your sister, and to feel guilty when you don't sideline yourself to make her number one. Please choose yourself over her for your wedding, and don't let her come if she shows up in a wedding dress, or doesn't drop the issue altogether. I do feel a bit left out, since she's offering to pay so much for herself. Yet, a few days ago, she said money was tight and she couldn't get me a wedding gift. I needed money for the hotel, even though I'm only paying for family coming out of state. And my wedding location is 1 to 2 hours from Stacy's house. I'll talk to her tomorrow and try to shut things down, since we have brunch planned. Now for the update. Hello everyone. I just wanted to post an update on the situation with my sister Stacy. The day after I made a post, me, my fiancé, Stacy, and her husband met up for brunch. I told her she needed to hear me out fully before she spoke, and thankfully she did. In short, I told her as much as I love her, I've waited years for this day, and it was mine. She had hers, and if she truly wanted, she could have used the money I gifted her to get her own wedding. Her husband tried to cut me off and say that they needed the money for rent, but she didn't let him talk. I then showed her the Reddit post, and she started crying and asked her husband and my fiancé to step out for a few minutes. They both did, and she told me that her husband and our mom had been the ones pressuring her, since she had admittedly been jealous, and told them both she wished she could have a larger scale wedding. She said she had been over the whole thing until her husband started saying it wasn't fair because he was jealous that he couldn't provide for her, and eventually complained enough she asked to walk down the aisle for him. Stacy said she was willing to fully back out of the wedding and would understand given the heartache she's given me, but I told her that her husband would be the one without an invite, which she gratefully agreed to. We talked more in depth on why she was jealous, and she said she regretted being married so early, just so our father could be at her wedding. After a few more minutes and both of us crying and forgiving one another, I told her she could always tell me anything, even if it was between her and her husband. When my fiancé and her husband came back in, I told Stacy's husband he was uninvited right then and there. He seemed to understand why immediately, though he did groan about it and call me multiple times. But I blocked him again. Over the past few days, our mother has called to apologize, and me and Stacy have been talking much more openly and honestly to one another. I decided to let her wear a dark silver or pale gold dress to match my theme and walk with me down the aisle, as my father sadly can't. She told me I didn't need to, but I insisted. We ended up finding a dress we both love, and I got it as a gift for her. Thank you all for the support and kind words. This is a touching update. I hope all goes well for you, your soon-to-be husband, and your sister. Thank you. I hope so too. Sound like you made the best of this situation. Having her walk you down the aisle was a great move. I'm sorry for the loss of your father. Your brother-in-law is a piece of work. He feels jealous because he can't provide for her, but is comfortable forcing others to provide? And not even necessities, but luxuries. What an entitled a-hole. OP, stay close to her sister. She has already given you signs that she's not happy in her marriage and may need your support to get out of it. Yes, I'll be keeping him close enough to keep an eye on him, but not too close. He's not a horrible guy, just very bad with money and hot-tempered. I hoped with age he would mellow out, but I'm not sure. OP, I know you're trying to see the good in him, but your brother-in-law sounds just like my dad. My dad never mellowed out, and in fact, age just made him worse and worse. He got angrier and angrier. Please be there for your sister if the worst in him finally comes out. You're a very kind and good sister, and I'm glad you held the line on this. At the same time, your sister also pushed you to pay for a hotel room she didn't need. Was that her husband's request too? And now you've bought her a beautiful dress. She may have pulled back so as not to exit the gravy train. I hope not. But remember to keep your boundaries solid for smaller things, as well as your wedding. Have a beautiful wedding. I did speak to her about that, because while they're short on money, they didn't need a hotel room. It was again her husband. He wanted a mini vacation, on my dime sadly. I may end up cutting him fully out for my life, because I don't need someone like him anymore in it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to talk to my mother after telling me I will not be getting a family heirloom for my wedding? My mother and father had a very toxic marriage and finally divorced 2 years ago. My father came from an ancestral wealthy family, and my mother did not. My father's mother gave my mother pieces from the family jewelry collection through the years. It was always my mom's intention to hand down these pieces for special occasions to myself and my sister. After my parents divorced, my mom absolutely hates my dad. She remarried within a year to a man of very humble means. She also moved on from my sister and I, truly focusing on building connections with her new stepchildren and doting on her new husband. I had a baby 5 months ago and she has only visited twice. They live life very simple and small. That is their choice. My mom will never receive something extravagant again. I, 35 female, am getting married this fall. My sister, 33 female, was married last year. and after much pressure put on my mom, received a coveted platinum, gold, diamond, and sapphire bracelet from my great-grandmother's collection from the early 1900s. I asked my mom for a ring from my father's side that is a chiseled family crest of a rare stone set in gold. I thought she would have no care for it since she hates my dad and it is my family. She said no, that I will not receive anything with no explanation. My sister and I figured that it's because our mom doesn't want to part with any of the collection because she loves fine jewelry. Mind you, my grandmother did give it to my mother, but she wants nothing to do with that family, lives in an unlocked small house in the middle of nowhere with a known history of break-ins, and kept everything from my father's side during the divorce. I am scared that someone will steal these pieces that have been in my family for hundreds of years, and I also don't trust her new husband's family. I'm disgusted with her. I find her selfish. Am I the a-hole for wanting to cut her out because I find her to be immature, or am I the one who is immature? Not the a-hole. While legally hers, the jewelry was almost certainly passed to your mother with the expectation it would stay in the family. She should honor that expectation. Although if you cut her out, you are virtually guaranteeing she won't will the jewelry to you either. What do you want to bet they've been selling some of the collection? That was my first thought as well. Honestly, passing them down would be getting rid of something Opie's mom didn't want anymore. Depending on how bad the marriage was, I could totally see Opie's mom selling them. I wonder if she's given them away to her stepchildren in order to win them over. Not the a-hole. The intent was clear that they would be handed down as family heirlooms. She was a caretaker of them, not the owner. That's very common with heirloom pieces. I have two from my mom, both well over 100 years old, and one will go to each of my daughters on a special occasion. Also, your mom is the a-hole for cutting off communication with her own children, just because she took up with another guy. How do we know it won't be handed down? Opie's mom is still alive. She doesn't have to hand over these pieces while she's still living. She doesn't. You're right. I think I'm just scared because my mother is so trusting. I don't trust these items in her hands right now. She's not giving it to you when she dies. She gave one to your sister but not to you. She would tell you if it was just, I'm saving it to be passed on later. I regret not doing the same for your sister, or something. Otherwise, she sounds like she plays favorites even between you two, because to just flat out tell you no sounds bizarre. Last story. Am I the a-hole for building my teenage sons a bedroom in the backyard? My wife and I have 5 children together. 9 male, 8 male, 7 male, 4 male, and 2 male. And I have 3 children with my ex-wife. 17 male, 15 male, 13 female. When I bought our current house, it had 4 bedrooms. I later renovated the basement to add another 2 bedrooms. My wife and I have 1 room, the 3 teenagers had a room each, and the younger boys share the same other 2 rooms, with various configurations over the years. As the younger boys get older, things are going to get more cramped for them, and we haven't ruled out having more kids. I also don't want to immediately take my older kids' rooms away the second they go to college, and maybe they'll stay local or not go at all. Because of this, I started looking at how I would add more bedrooms. The property our house is on is a little under 1 acre. Last year, I decided I would build a den in the backyard that could become the older boys' bedrooms. The build was finished a few weeks ago and the boys have moved in. They have a small shared living space that includes a kitchenette, a shared bathroom, and they each have their own rooms. It's essentially a tiny house in our yard. The boys love it, and we had a lot of fun working on the build together. My ex-wife, however, is less than pleased with the boys' new living arrangements. She has multiple safety concerns, as she thinks they're too far away if something happens, and that they will feel like they could get away with whatever, so I can't monitor them well. She also thinks it's unfair they will have to walk through a yard to get to and from their bedrooms to the house, even in adverse weather conditions. She feels as though I'm pushing the boys away by housing them in the backyard, and that it suggests I'm prioritizing my new family, while at the same time thinking giving them a cool den in the backyard is favoring them over their sister. I think her biggest issue is the one she didn't mention, which is worrying the boys will want to spend even more time at my house if they have more privacy and great place to hang with their friends. We no longer split custody based on our custody agreement, And for the last few years, the boys have lived a majority of the time with me, whereas our daughter alternates between our houses every 2 weeks. My ex is trying to make it out like I'm a massive a-hole in this situation, but I really don't feel like I am. However, in the past, I haven't always known when I have been an a-hole, so maybe I'm missing something. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If it meets code, you're fine. If some adverse event is forecasted, deal with it at a time. And by the way, she doesn't get a say-so about how you manage at her house. It's nice that you listen, but she's not in charge. Those boys are old enough to be held accountable if they mess up, and until then, have your trust. They're nearly adult. And it's actually a perfect way to learn how to live on your own while still having the safety net of your parents nearby if needed. This is actually a very good point, and makes me support OP even more. Not a-hole. The boys are 17 and 15. They're going to want to keep that privacy that having their own bedroom gives, and they seem to be absolutely ecstatic with this, being how they get to keep it while still giving space to their younger half-siblings. If they felt like they were being isolated from the family, this would be a different answer. Weather is too adverse to travel a short distance through the yard, time to have a family sleepover in the main house living room. They're old enough that it's their opinion that matters, not your ex-wife's. I would have killed to have that kind of space as a teen. It's partially why I appreciate my apartment so much as an adult. It's nice to have a place that you can always feel is your space. And even if you leave for college, it's nice to know you have a place to go home to. Exactly. Even gives them a place to stay if they come back as adults to visit on the holidays or just because. He's created a private place that will last and be appreciated by the kids, even in the future. Shows that dad here cares about the long term. Am I the a-hole for leaving the hospital after my fiancé told me to pay the bill? For context, me female 26 and my fiancé male 28 have been together for 3 years. Finances are split till after marriage and we have equally paying jobs. He doesn't pay when we eat out. He doesn't pay for any fixes in our rental apartment. It also doesn't help with furniture and stuff. I tried to have conversation about how I'm always supposed to foot the bill for almost everything. His excuse is that he's been saving for a new apartment, been saving up for 2 years now. But he still has half of his salary, which he uses on himself and buys gadgets and gaming stuff. When I tried to argue about it, he'd say it's his money after all and remind me of how he's saving up to buy an apartment for us. Days ago, he called me and asked that I take him to the hospital to treat his ankle. It's been hurting him for weeks, but only now he decided to get it checked. I drove him there since he was in pain, but was surprised when he told me to pay the bill. I asked him why not him, and he brought up the new apartment he's been saving up for again. I had it, especially after he threatened to not add my name to the new apartment's title if I refused to help him out. I snapped and told him to pay for himself and stop using my money with the apartment excuse. Then I left. He had to pay but was furious, saying I'd let him down in his time of struggle. Also said that my attitude isn't partner material. I told him I felt like he was using the new apartment to spend my money, but he said I had no empathy or sense of responsibility to support and help him out when he is doing me a huge favor and buying me an entire freaking apartment. He's calling me selfish and negative. I don't know. I feel guilty for doing this and now he's avoiding me entirely. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are being used. 100% when he has enough money for the apartment, he dumps you. Stop footing the bill. Leave him. There is no savings account. That's what I thought. If he was expecting me to foot the bill on a bunch of stuff that should be shared, I'd want to see the balance of the account on a regular basis. Or at the very least have a signed contract of some sort saying she gets to be on the title, or gets a cash payout in the event he doesn't end up buying an apartment / doesn't put her on the title. Not the a-hole. He is just using you and your money and probably plans to dump you once he buys the apartment. Totally agree. Came to say this. He's using you for your money and not contributing to household expenses. I'd freaking run. Not the a-hole. I doubt he'll buy a place. He has someone paying all his bills, / cleaning up after him, / fun adult activity, / cooking. He isn't leaving unless she cuts him off and throws him out, and there will never be a marriage. Next story. Am I the a-hole for turning off my husband's alarm? Me 31 and my husband 35 both work from home. His start time is 8:30 and the work he does essentially timestamps what he does. He also has a micromanaging boss. On occasion, he may have to go into the office to perform on-site work. My start time is 8 a.m. and the work I do is very independent and at my own pace, and my boss could care less to track my every move as long as my deadlines are met. My husband sets his alarm at 7 a.m. every day, even though he admits he doesn't want to be up until 8:15 at the earliest. But he never wakes up to it. But the rest of us hear it, so my toddler and I usually wake up about 45 minutes earlier than we need to as a result. I've asked him to stop setting it so early, and he said he needs the whole hour of snoozing to wake up. So, he's been on the couch lately, but I still wake up to it from there and have to snooze it every 15 minutes. I'm currently 6 months pregnant, so this morning I was exhausted and didn't want our toddler waking up earlier than needed and wanted the extra sleep myself, so I turned it off. But it was too late. Our toddler already woke up to it. So I got up, then got busy with our toddler. Our toddler went to daycare around 8:15. My parents pick up. At 8:27, I realized the time, so I went to wake my husband up and told him I must have accidentally hit off instead of snooze on your alarm when I was tired. But it's almost 8:30. You should get up. And I went about my business working. I took a break and came downstairs to find him asleep at 9:47 a.m. And I jolted him and said, "You're still asleep? It's almost 10. And he said, "No effing way," and ran to his laptop. He told me to stop turning his alarm off and basically don't touch it unless I hit snooze. Thing is, he goes to sleep almost every night around 2 a.m., so he's not gonna wake up to a 7 a.m. alarm 9 out of 10 times. Instead, I always wake up to it and have the task of hitting snooze every 15 minutes anyway. Yes, I technically lied to him about his alarm, but I am literally tired of this. And I did make sure to wake him up on time. Or so I thought. Am I the a-hole? Stop waking him up. Stop waking him up this minute. This is not your job. There are 50 different devices he could use to wake himself up. Or he could just grow the F up and do it himself. I repeat, this is not your job and it is not your responsibility. He needs to manage his own business without disturbing his family. He needs to be an adult and a father. Not the a-hole, but you will be if you enable this anymore. This makes sense in theory, but in practice, it leaves Opie and the child still get woken up by the alarm before he intends to wake up. Yeah, my husband was a chronic snooze pusher too, but is also a decent man. So when I told him that as soon as the alarm goes off, I'm up no matter what and can't go back to sleep, he stopped freaking doing it. Opie's husband is a tool and should grow the heck up and go to bed earlier, like an adult with a wife and child. Not the a-hole, but if it's waking up the toddler, just have the toddler jump on top of him until he wakes up. He'll stop waking the toddler up early after that. I can tell you this will backfire greatly and just end up with an angry husband and a wife who has to deal with him yelling about not keeping the toddler out of the room. I try it occasionally. Oh no, if my husband yelled at me because his actions have consequences, he would not be my husband for very long. Not the a-hole. Snoozing your alarm for 45 minutes is ridiculously rude when there are other people who can hear it. You've obviously already spoken to him about it because he was on a couch. That clearly wasn't enough. If you and your toddler are both waking up to this alarm, it's an issue. Also, why are you the only one getting up in the morning with a toddler? Especially pregnant, you should be able to trade off with him, or you both get up. Am I the a-hole for not withdrawing my job application for the sake of my brother? I have an older brother who does not work by choice. Literally the most educated, smartest man I've ever known. He's just lazy. It's literally been years, and has been neck-bearding in our parents' basement while I'm busting my ass at school. I took out loans, and when I graduate, I'm expected to pay them back. Hence why I need a job on top of having to pay for other living expenses. My brother has never paid a penny for his education. My parents in their own name took out loans for him. Lately, my dad's been getting on his butt about getting a job, but my brother's been brushing him off. I was given a tip to apply to this really lucrative graduate program. It's not in my field whatsoever, but it's paid training. Really well paid. And I put in an application. I told my mom about it and she asked for the link to the program. I sent it without giving it a second thought and I got an interview. Now, when I told my mom about it, she asked me to withdraw my application so that I can give my brother a chance to apply. I said, "What? He's had literal years to apply. This is my opportunity, even if it's not in my field. There's no guarantee that I'm going to get it anyway, but I want to at least try." I need a job and I don't ever want to be financially dependent on my family. I want a life of my own, and I feel like them asking me to withdraw my application from consideration is sabotaging my future for the sake of their golden child. I've always been put on the back burner for the sake of my brother, and they feel that is his opportunity to have since it's his field. But 1, I have no idea if he applied, and 2, I don't think he'd be allowed to apply because it's a new grad program, and he has not been a new grad in years. I don't plan to withdraw my application, but everyone in my family is telling me I'm being selfish. I've been banned from Thanksgiving, and I came home yesterday to find my mom converting my room into an office for my brother. My aunt has been bombarding me with texts telling me I'm not being considerate of family. My friends are mostly on my side, except one said she sees my parents' point of view. But I don't know. Family friends I see on public won't even look at me anymore. Over an interview. It's mad. Am I the a-hole for not giving my brother this opportunity? Not the a-hole. Their request is nonsensical, and your family appears to be smoking some wacky tobacco. Get the job and put your career trajectory on an onwards and upwards path and never look back. And when those mooches call wanting money and favors, go, new phone, who's this? Not the a-hole. Remind all the people in your family that are upset over this that you, unlike your brother, have school loans to pay. Jeez. Why is your family so lopsided in their support of their kids? Is your brother expected to care for your parents financially in their retirement? Unfortunately, that responsibility will fall to the girl in the family, aka me, the only girl in my Asian family. No, it won't, because you don't actually have to. When you are old, do you want to be begging and relying on your kids? No? Stop the cycle and mind your own finances, especially given the way they've been treating you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my step-siblings I only help people I care about, which doesn't include them? My dad and his wife blended their family 7 years ago. Me, 16 male, and my brother, 13 male, come from our parents' marriage. Our mom died 9 years ago. Beth, 15 female. Luke, 14 male, and Laura, 12 female, come from dad's wife's first marriage. My dad and his wife also have Katie, 5 female together. I have a pretty complicated history with learning disability. I was diagnosed before my mom died and always struggled with school, reading, and writing. I used tech to help me write stuff like this. I can speak fine, but actually reading or writing anything, including numbers, is terrifying to me. It's something that has meant I need a lot of extra help in school. My mom used to read stuff like menus out to me. My brother actually started doing it when he got better at reading too. It's something I can't hide and it's embarrassing as hell. It's something my step-siblings have made fun of since forever. Beth made a really hurtful comment the first time she realized, and her mom corrected her. But since she and her siblings were not happy with her mom meeting my dad, and since I would do things differently, like I never did homework at home, they would tease me and taunt me behind their mom's back. I spoke up a few times, and it got corrected pretty hard. Eventually, it got to the point where I no longer saw the point of saying anything. Around that time, it got to the point where I would tell my friends to pretend my step-siblings weren't part of my family or my life, because I didn't want them to be. I got my license over the summer and got permission to drive my dad's car. I've been bringing my brother places sometimes, and suddenly my step-siblings have been trying to be nice to me. I ignore them. I say no to bringing them places. A few days ago, Beth wanted to go to this dance practice related to the dance classes she does. Her mom couldn't take her because she's sick. My dad wasn't around either. My dad's car was at home though, so she asked me to bring her. I said no. She followed me around begging and I kept saying no. Luke and Laura joined in and they said we're family, and family should do things for each other, and how I never help them out. I told them I only help people I care about, and it doesn't include them. Their mom overheard, and once my dad got home, they told me what I said was really unfair and cruel. They took away my ability to drive the car. Dad wanted me to apologize and say I didn't mean it. But I did, and I can see they all think I'm wrong for that. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Sit down with your dad and stepmom at a time when you guys can discuss alone and emotions aren't high, and explain your reasoning and how you feel. Your stepmom needs to understand the depth of hurt that your step-siblings have inflicted on you over the years. Because right now, they probably just view it as a typical step-sibling arguments. This has been discussed in depth before. My brother got in some trouble about 3 years ago for locking Beth and Luke in a room while Laura was at a friend's house and the adults were busy. When Dad found out, he was furious and explained why my brother had done it. We ended up in therapy with Dad and his wife, and the whole thing was dragged out there, including them saying we shouldn't stop caring about them because of the stuff that was happening and how they would deal with it and our step-siblings would grow. For me, I never started to care about them, and I told them that and why. But I think they dismiss it because we're all still kids, even knowing the stuff that has been said. They see it as they will grow up and will be close as adults, but I don't ever want to be family with them. And I don't know how many more times I can tell them all the stuff that has happened and why I feel like I do. I see it as pointless by now. If it's been a few years since you've discussed it in depth, it might be worth a shot again now that you're a bit older. Otherwise, your parents really suck for not hearing you out. Either way, I'm sorry you have to go through this. It's not fair to you no matter what. The parents are probably still holding on with both hands on the dream of perfect blended family. Yeah, they are. I know they think it can still happen. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he is a bad father? My 14 female mom passed away about 8 months ago. She got very sick a few years ago, and eventually her body couldn't handle it anymore. Her and my dad had been divorced since I was 5. After the funeral, I moved in with my dad, 40 male, stepmom Jane, 39 female, and 2 stepsisters, Alex and Sophie, 12 female and 13 female. To be frank, we've never gotten along. Jane has tried to replace my mother numerous times, even refusing to let me go back to my mom's house one weekend because I wouldn't call her mom. She's always been like this, forcing me to hang out with my stepsisters, take family photos, call them family, do family game night and so on. And ever since my mom died, she's gotten worse. Recently, she started to refer me as her daughter at family functions. None of my mom's side of the family likes her. Last night, Jane had friends over. I came home at around 7 because I had practice after school. My dad told me to come and say hello to everyone even though I didn't want to, but I did it to make him happy. When I walked into the living room, Jane jumped up and gave me a huge hug, which got awkward really fast. She turned around and said to her friends, "This is Opie, mine and Dad's name's first daughter." I stopped her and said, "No, you're my stepmom, not my mom." Everyone was silent, but my dad told me I needed to come with him. He took me to my room, which I shared with my stepsisters, and asked me what I was doing. I said that Jane wasn't my mother, so I wouldn't refer her as such. He started yelling at me about being ungrateful, spoiled, and a selfish brat for not accepting that this was my new family now. I started crying and yelled that he was a bad father, and that this was his new family. They never would be mine. I guess Jane heard our yelling because she ran into the room and told me that she was my mom, and the other woman didn't matter anymore because she's dead. I'm staying with my grandparents, mom's side, because Jane kicked me out, and I'm starting to feel guilty for not being more open. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your mother may have passed, but she's still your mom, and it's wildly inappropriate not only of your stepmother to refer to you as her daughter without clearing that with you first, but even more so of your father to have such little regard and respect for your feelings that he would go off on you for correcting her. It might be for the best if you speak with your grandparents to see if they're willing to take over as your guardians for the time being, because it sounds like your father might not be mentally or emotionally mature enough to be doing so at this time. I agree. Plus, the stepmom is only connected to the OP via marriage. The minute the marriage ends via death, the stepmom is no one to her. Not the a-hole. Come on. You think you were too harsh for yelling at the woman who told you your mother doesn't matter anymore because she's dead? Really? OP is also 14 and probably still mourning, so maybe they don't deserve to be helped that way. Am I the a-hole for throwing my siblings in foster care so I can have a better life? I have roughly too many siblings and even more step-siblings. Between my parents and my latest stepfather, we had 8 kids living here. Myself, 19 female, 3 half-siblings on my mom's side, 15, 11, and 9. 4 step-siblings, 14, 12, 9, and 6. And 1 full sister, 6 female. Things have never been particularly good or stable, but now we're at rock bottom. My mother and stepfather are going to be going away for a long time and everyone is in a rush to get all these kids into homes. I'm the only one who's over 18, so everyone wants me to do it. I don't want to. I had gotten an opportunity. My grandma on my father's side offered to have 6 female and I move in with her, and even pay for me to go to college. The thing is, she lives several states away. I talked to social services about this and got the answer that I could move 6th female without a problem because our parents were able to voluntarily give me guardianship of her and I'm her full sister. The rest I could only take in if I stayed in the States because they would be a full foster care placement though. I'm sorry, but being forced to stay here would destroy my future. I could definitely survive, but I would be stuck in this horrible place working paycheck to paycheck. I could never have a real life, so I made the obvious choice. The social workers were nice enough to arrange it to where 6th female and I weren't just standing in front of them during the pickup, but obviously they know exactly why they're now in care. The 4 of them that have phones have been texting and calling me nonstop. Some of them for help and some to just scream at me for abandoning them. I know the system is going to be really bad for them because of where they are and their ages, but I just can't do it. I can't blow this. This is mine and 6 females' first chance for a real life, and I feel like I owe it to both of us to take it. Am I in the wrong here? The kids and my mom think I am. My grandma thinks I should have done something but can't say what, and wouldn't let them in her house even if it could happen. The only person who doesn't think worse of me is 6th female, who says she likes the quiet, but obviously doesn't know the full story. Now for the top comments. Not stay whole. Your siblings should be mad at your parents, not you. They were the ones putting everyone in this position. You are 19. In no way can or should you be the parent to that many kids. Don't fault yourself. You were put in that situation too, not just them. Good luck to all of you. And have siblings and step-siblings, there should be other parents and grandparents who could take them in. The full sibling is the only one where there isn't another parent, and it sounds like grandparent is stepping up for her and you. Not stay whole. Exactly what stuck out to me too. The half-siblings presumably have fathers out there, and the step-siblings have a mother. Even if those parents are also out of the picture for whatever reason, I assume they have families. So that means not a single adult from 4 possible families was willing to step up for any of the kids? And yet they all judged the 19-year-old for not doing it. I feel for those kids and I don't blame them for being upset, but it's horrible that mom and everyone else is encouraging them to direct the anger at OP. This is not her fault at all. I don't know where any of the extended families are except mine and 6 females. I wasn't close to either of the fathers of my half-siblings. If I ever met their families, it was maybe once. My mom's family aren't people I would go see voluntarily. I have some involvement in the foster care system in my country. It is absolutely amazing how often desperate social workers will try to come up with a kinship care solution that a 5-year-old could see would never work. The problem is that the system is in crisis. There aren't enough foster carers, and social workers have caseloads that are too high. So in desperation, they will try to stitch together some kinship, family care, plan that usually falls apart in a couple of months. There is no way in the world that an 18-year-old should ever be approved to take on 6 or 7 children. It should never even have been offered as an option to you because you don't have the capacity to raise those children and care for them. You made the right choice. It's heartbreaking, but it's right. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my friend and her daughter live with me and my boyfriend? Me, female 25, and my boyfriend Marcus, male 29, have been together for 3 years, lived together for 2. I've known Ellie, female 24, since we were kids. We grew up down the street from each other and have remained close friends all these years. She has a 3-year-old daughter, Heather. The guy that got her pregnant ended up being a total piece of crap and left her as soon as she gave birth. He then signed away his parental rights and is no contact. Ellie and Heather currently live with her parents and they help her financially. Ellie's family is from France and her parents have moved here before she was born. They decided they want to move back to France next year so they can be closer to the rest of the family. Ellie wants to stay here, but she's not financially stable enough to live on her own. Marcus and I bought a 3-bedroom house to move into in January. We wanted the extra space so we could have room for our 2 dogs, and we will use the extra rooms as a guest room and an office since I have a hybrid job. An office half the time / work from home the other half. Ellie asked if her and Heather could move into the guest room for a couple years while she saves money to get her own place. I have a few issues with this. 1, she has a kid. Nothing against Heather. She's a sweet girl and I've babysat her a few times. But me and Marcus are child-free, so we don't want to have to change the way we live to accommodate one. Things like child-proofing the place, potentially being woken up at night to a crying kid are things we just don't want. 2, Ellie isn't trustworthy with finances. She doesn't make moves to better her life. Her family paid for online college classes and she failed out. They pay for childcare while Ellie works, but she keeps quitting jobs. She spends money on new clothes for herself instead of saving, etc. She does not contribute to bills or groceries for her parents whatsoever. Basically lives there for free. 3. Marcus and I just want our own space for us and our dogs. And we've worked really hard to save up the money for this house, and we just want it to be for us. 4. It would be for at least a year or 2. We wanted a guest room for friends and family to be able to stay with us when visiting, but only for temporary stays, like 1 to 2 weeks max. Marcus agrees with me on all these points. However, Ellie called me in tears, saying that she has no other option, and that she wants her and Heather to stay in the US but can't do it alone. She practically begged me, saying that I was an a-hole for having all this extra space, and not using it to help her out of her situation when we've been friends for so long. She told me if the situation was reversed, she would do it for me. I don't want to have to see her move away and be unhappy, but the whole setup would just make us uncomfortable. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at all. Those couple of years would basically be you with a child you didn't sign up for. And honestly, it would probably end up a lot longer than a couple of years. It's your house. You decide who stays and who doesn't. And her lack of planning is not your emergency. Ellie has other options. Either get her act together or move back to France with her parents. Not the a-hole. Right? She's acting desperate. But she has a home waiting for her in France if she's unwilling to not be a lazy flake. And it sounds like Ellie hasn't paid for rent, utilities, childcare, or food in years. She should absolutely have enough money saved to put a deposit on an apartment or something. This begs another question. Who will watch Heather while Ellie is at work or out? I'm assuming she will want Opie to watch the kid when she's working from home. If Ellie can't support herself and her child, she needs to move to France with her parents. Not expect to get the same treatment her parents give her from her friends. That is asking way too much of Opie and her husband. They may be lifelong friends, but it's not their responsibility to support her. Not the a-hole. Ellie has had months/years living with her parents to better her position and hasn't done so. Even though he signed away his rights, she could pursue the father for child support, but presumably hasn't done so. Why should you and your husband do more for Ellie and her daughter? House them, probably pay their utilities and maybe even feed them, than Ellie had done herself. If you let her move in, Ellie won't save. She'll just spend her money just like she always has. If Ellie wants a free ride, she can move to France with her parents. If she wants a free ride, she can just not. Because that's not the way the real world works. Not in the USA, not in France, not in Canada, not anywhere. Her parents are no longer responsible for her as an adult, and they're not obligated to pay thousands of dollars/euros for her to move to France so she can continue to leech off of them. She needs to get a job and support her child, and maybe it will take her being homeless temporarily to pull her head out of her behind and learn that. I feel bad for the daughter though. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not caring for a child I said I wouldn't care for? I'm 28 female, I'm child-free. I don't even really like kids. My sister, 23 female Amber, has a kid, and because it's a pretty close-knit family, she's pretty used to everyone pitching in to help. She said she was going out for a few hours and was stopping at my house to pick up a package delivered to me by mistake. We have the same street number on similar sounding streets. Think 25 Hirsch and 25 Hurst, so this happens pretty often. When Amber got to my house, she put down her kid and said, "Thanks for watching him, by the way." I asked her what she was talking about. She said she was thanking me for watching her kid as well. I said that I never agreed to it and was not okay with that. But she said, "We're sisters, family helps family," and ended up leaving. So I didn't. I left the kid right in my entryway where Amber left him and just went about my day. I didn't leave the house or anything, but I said I'm not a babysitter and I wasn't one. Well, Amber got mad at me when she came back 4 hours later and the kid had a full diaper and was crying when he saw her. I told her I said I wasn't watching her kid, and she's lucky I didn't call the police. But Amber said that not wanting to babysit doesn't mean you don't do it. The entire family sides with her, and Amber says she's cutting me off until I apologize and make more of an effort with my nephew. I've gotten nasty messages from relatives galore, and the only one who doesn't think me a raging witch is my dad, who doesn't involve at all in family drama. I do love my sister and understand family is family, but am I really the a-hole for not doing a job I expressly said I don't want? Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. You left a baby unsupervised for 4 hours? No matter what point you were trying to prove, Are you really willing to risk the life of a baby to make it? The only good solution here was to tell her you wouldn't take care of the kid and tell her that if she leaves, you'll call the police. Then you call the police when she leaves. You don't let a kid unsupervised for 4 hours, even if your sister sucks. You don't let a kid unsupervised for 4 hours to prove a point. The baby was in a carrier. They left a child in the entryway in a carrier for 4 hours. Honestly disgusting of OP. Everyone sucks here. Yes, and people are missing the fact that babies have died in carriers from positional asphyxiation and strangulation. Is OP nuts? You would not leave a puppy out there like that. It can literally die. By all means, call the police or CPS to teach her a lesson. But risking a kid's life to prove some sort of point is WTF mate territory. The only one even more insane is the mom. How in the world does she leave her own baby alone like that without an adult explicitly taking responsibility? Truly, a lot of people in this world should not breed. This whole family's absolutely guano crazy. Everyone sucks here. Hard. You're the a-hole. You punished a tiny baby for the actions of an adult. Punishing the innocent is always an a-hole move. Doing it to a literal infant in diapers is unconscionable. You should be ashamed of yourself. Glad she plans to be child-free. At least some self-awareness, I guess. This is less child-free and more like anti-kid. Child-free people aren't cruel to kids. They just don't want them for themselves. She's what called aggressively child-free. They're some of the cruelest losers allowed to walk among the general public. Pathetic in every way and willing to let a child suffer for their own values. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to babysit my ex's stepkids? Plus updates. My ex Thomas and I have been split for around 4 years. We have 2 kids together. Twins, a boy and a girl aged 12. He married Sandy about 18 months ago. She has 2 children between 7 to 10 years old. Our current custody agreement is I have the kids 2 weeks on 1 week off when they go to Thomas's. It's a private agreement we have as it works best with his job as he travels, so we make sure for that week he's home. Recently I got a text from Sandy asking if I could come pick the kids up. She had plans and my ex had been held up at work. Wasn't a problem. I was on my way home from work so I could swing by and get them. I rang my ex to confirm that's what he wanted and also said it's around 5:30. I'll keep them for the night. He said that was great and would let Sandy know. When I got to their place, my kids opened the door and were packed and ready to go. The kids called out that I was there and they were leaving and she yelled out a goodbye. As I was pulling out of the driveway, Sandy comes running out waving her arms. I stop and ask what the problem was, and she said why I didn't take her kids. I said that wasn't what I agreed to and I would never agree to that. She replied, why not? I'm always babysitting your kids. I said that's something between you and Thomas, but my kids are my responsibility. And I'm sorry, but I don't know your children well enough to take them back to my house and have them stay. I left, and within 2 minutes, Thomas is on the phone begging me to go back and get Sandy's kids because she always watches ours. I said the same thing to him and hung up. I got the kids home, and while they were having dinner, I asked how often does Sandy watch them. My son said they normally don't see their dad till the weekend. Sometimes they see him in the morning, but it's normally Sandy who is with them during the week. I left the kids to watch TV and rang Thomas back. He started cussing me out about Sandy's kids. I let him finish and asked why he thought it would be appropriate for a woman that those kids hardly know look after them at my house. He said again that Sandy watched our kids, so fair is fair, and I've also upset her kids as they were looking forward to the sleepover. I rang my sister to vent and she flipped it on me and said I was taking my issues with Sandy and Thomas out on Sandy's kids. I don't have any issue with either of them, but I'm starting to feel like I was the a-hole, but I made no promises to her kids. Not the a-hole. That's just not how custody works. You aren't obligated to take care of your ex's stepkids. At this point, I would ask him if he wants to modify custody. Obviously, he is taking this as some sort of favor she is doing for you by babysitting your kids. Take that power off the table. If this is such a burden that she feels entitled to reciprocal childcare, I can certainly take that off both of your plate. And then there is no obligation that can even be inferred. Yep. Get all of their answers in text about how often the ex is actually spending time with the kids and how they both claim she's babysitting. If he isn't spending the time with them, he doesn't need them that often. Then the new wife doesn't really have anything to say. aside from the obvious fact that OP's never obligated to watch these other kids. Info. She says she babysits the kids during Thomas week. She has never babysat for me during my time. Update. I wasn't aware that Thomas was MIA during the week. I always ask the kids how was it at their dad's, what they did, etc., but I never grill them for info, and they haven't mentioned before he hadn't been home. I also don't want to go guns blazing to my lawyers and changing our custody agreement. In our country, not America, it's very common to have private agreements done with our lawyers and not in front of a judge. I have messaged Thomas to have a catch-up about the kids. Info. For everyone asking about right of first refusal, this is not a law in our country. Final update. Thanks for all your comments. I've just gotten back from a catch-up with Thomas. We have agreed for right now I'll have the kids full-time and I'll have them every second weekend. But I have also made him agree that he'll take them out during the week twice a month. And when his work settles down, we will go back to the original agreement with him being at home. Otherwise, I will be going for full legal custody through the court.